Scanning for audio.
Welcome once again to a Tin Dog podcast. Now, do you ever think that you've done something only to discover that you really haven't? I know for a fact that I've had recording issues with several pieces of my kit, thus resulting in the fact that some things have been lost. I've reviewed one book 3 times before I eventually received a file that I could use. That's not what's important. What is important, however, is that you, my dear, wonderful and probably attractive listeners, you've not heard my review of The Memory Bank and Other Stories. Main range release number 217. It's one of those really charming 4 stories 1 box, so it manages to bump up the story total, and boy oh boy is it outclassing anything the BBC have ever produced, in order to give us, well, some great tales. You've got The Memory Bank by Chris Chapman. You've got The Last Fairy Tale by Paul Maggs, Repeat Offender, Eddie Robson, and The Becoming, Ian Potter. You've got the cast of The Fifth Doctor, that's Peter Davison, Mark Strickson playing Turlough, and a host of other people, Sean McLean, Ian Brooker, Mandy Simmons, Duncan Wibsey, and Kay Alexander. They're all very, very different stories. And you know what? Each one could have been a full-length main-range tale, without that much more padding. But you know what? They work gloriously here. They're all so terribly different, so if you're not enjoying one of them, there'll be another one in a few moments to enjoy it. And if you're out there and you like The Fifth Doctor but you're not listening to a lot of Big Finish, because let's face it, you can't buy everything, then this is a great thing to get, because you're getting 4 stories for the price of 1. First off, The Memory Bank. Fairly simple. The Doctor and Turlough arrive on a planet where to be forgotten is to cease to exist, but the forgotten leave a gap in the world, and that's where the monsters are hiding. This story does exactly what it's just said on the tin. If I tell you any more than that, it's going to be a spoiler. Yes, the idea that these creatures possibly may or may not exist, we'll get back to you. And yes, the creature itself, if it is in the story, bears a striking resemblance to something that we may have seen on the Costa del Crime just a matter of months ago. But that's beside the point. It's the characterisation and the emotional journeys that matter, and that's what you're getting in spades here, as always. The second story, The Last Fairy Tale by Paul Maggs. Deep in the heart of old Europe, the village of Vadhok awaits the coming of a mythical teller of magical tales, but not all stories end happily. The TARDIS travellers will soon discover. Again, this could have been a massive 4-part, brilliant story. Yes, a few extra things might have been thrown in, but they're not needed. It's a glorious little tale, and has more to do with the nature of stories and of magic than really should be in Doctor Who. You'll love it, and it's the sort of story that hitches itself into your head, and you find yourself a few days later, or indeed weeks later, going, oh yeah, and you come back to it and think about it. And that's the sign of truly great storytelling, something that sits in your head like a little troll poking you every so often. The third story, Repeat Offender, is singularly the one that feels the most like it should have been expanded into something bigger and become so much more complicated. Repeat Offender. The Doctor has tracked a deadly Britannian shroud to the 22nd century Reykjavik, where he's about to become a victim of a serial killer again. Yes, you can use the words timey and indeed wimey to describe this one, but it could have been something so much more convoluted. And Reykjavik, one of those nice foreign-sounding places where you're never quite completely sure where it truly is, keeps appearing in Doctor Who because it sounds great. Finally, The Becoming by Ian Potter. possibly the most ethereal of the 4 stories. A young woman climbs a perilous mountain in search of her destiny. The Doctor and Turlough save her from the monsters on her trail. But what awaits them inside the cavern of becoming is stranger even than the ravenous hungerers outside. It is one of the stories that feels much more like it belongs in a Doctor Who novel, the sort of thing you'd be reading and engrossed and drawn into. It has so much depth and perception. It has a certain full circle vibe, but you know what? If Doctor Who can't be influenced by itself, then when can it? And as always with these stories, it's the characterisation and the delivery that really, really makes it unique. So a wholly remarkable box set, and it's only 4 stories on 2 discs. And you know what? Well, you can't beat that, can you? And so with that, I'll fade away and let you listen to the trailer. So until next time, be seeing you.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions.
What's all this then? What are you 2 up to? Hiding in the bushes to ambush the unwary?
This is Turlough.
You didn't have to tell her.
And I'm the Doctor.
And your name's Lara,
How do you know?
We won't hurt you.
Transmat powering up.
Doctor, you are not leaving me here.
Remember.
It is not our way. The Hungerers give nothing to the world, and we take nothing from them.
We're not going inside some rough old pub.
Come along, friend Turlough.
Why do you want the storyteller anyway?
Are you kidding? Look at Earth.
But it's led me to 3 different TARDISes.
We're perfectly nice and reasonable people, actually.
I've just realised something.
Where are you going?
Down to the village before it's too late.
Here we go again.
Doctor Who, The Memory Bank and Other Stories. Big Finish. We love stories.
That was the Doctor Who Tin Dog Podcast, available on iTunes, YouTube, Twitter, RSS, Vimeo, and across the internet. Doctor Who and its associated properties are all copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Why not become a supporter by visiting patreon.com/tindog. Contact the show on tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.